Welcome. I hope you enjoy the conversation you're about to see between me and another comedian about religion and comedy. These are conversations I'm calling Disorganized Religion. God bless. And for those atheists out there, may nothing await you after this life. Welcome, nerds, to another episode of Disorganized Religion. I am your host, Seth Lawrence, as always. And this week we are joined by the fantastically beautiful and rather talented as well, so double threat, Robert Schultz.
Seth, you don't need to say I'm talented. I'm really just here to show off the good looks.
I mean, you are talented. Here's the thing. People have come to you for a YouTube miniseries. People have come to your Twitter. You have thousands of followers, which is thousands more than I have. And you've got a little special on Laugh After Dark. So come on. You're a talented guy.
I have so little money. And I think that really that's the subtext to every single thing that's been said is I have so little money.
Is that right? Because you look like someone who has lots of money.
And you see, that's what trips me up is people assume I have a lot of money. So, but in reality, so little.
Yeah. What did you do?
And that's my curse.
You just hop off the yacht and just throw the bags? Just like
that's what you see. That's what people assume. I'm like, hey, can I have some money for food? And they're like, why don't you get it at the country club, Rockefeller? And I'm like, good one. You got me. I am so hungry, though.
For real. Oh, my gosh. Now, where are you from originally?
I'm from Missouri.
Oh, wow. That is, what part of Missouri?
I'm from St. Louis. So I'm from like a suburb of St. Louis. It feels weird to say that because St. Louis is like relatively small compared to LA, but
yeah. Now the reason I went is because as a Latter-day Saint, the Mormons have a troubled history with the state of Missouri.
Not a lot of people have a great history with the state of Missouri.
I mean,
nobody's like, I went to Missouri and they were good to me there.
Yeah,
I set down roots.
Yeah. Well, I think now anyway. Maybe not. Missouri, I mean, I've visited Illinois, Missouri, the Nauvoo area because it's culturally important for my faith. So we've been there, and it's a pretty area, and there's some charm to it.
Yeah. I mean,
but were you excited to get out of Missouri?
You know what? I was, but it's one of those things of like the more time I've spent away from there, I think it's like nostalgia. It's one of those things where like I feel good when looking back on it. At the same time, when somebody's like, "Hey, when are you to come back to visit?" I'm like, "Never." But oh, it's nice. It's got like forests. I like the weather. Yeah. There is nice parts of it, and
yeah. The bugs get to me though.
The bugs were awful. Like that is one thing where it's just like bugs were the very fact that bugs were a variable is not a good sign.
Yeah.
That I had a plan for bugs.
Yeah, it's Missouri and like the South. Those are the only two places I've lived in any amount of time where I honestly have like, I can't stay here because of the bugs.
So how much time have you spent in Missouri? Because you said like, did you live there for any amount of time or was it just like visiting because of like faith?
So while I was attending Brigham Young University, I did a study abroad, but it wasn't abroad. So it was a study afar in Missouri, Illinois. It was in Nauvoo. So we were there for a semester, which is like 10 weeks, something like that.
That's brutal. Your study abroad took you to Missouri and Illinois. That
was my foreign experience. Yeah. So not, anyhow. And the only real parts I saw were Nauvoo, which is a really small town area in Illinois.
Interesting. Yeah.
But, yeah. So did you come out of St. Louis to LA or have you lived elsewhere in the United States?
Well, I went from out of St. Louis to Orange County. I went to college at Chapman University. Go Panthers. Yeah, and then I went from there to LA. Full disclosure, when I went to Orange County, I fully thought it was in LA. Like I thought Orange County was to Los Angeles what a suburb of St. Louis was to St. Louis.
Yeah, sure.
Boy, was I wrong. But it was nice. So yeah, I kind of had that little midpoint.
Right. Well, LA is confusing because it is enormous and there are a lot of little areas,
And honestly, it's like it feels incredibly naive to say, but my exposure was the show The OC, and in my head, I'm like, oh, a TV show takes place in New York or LA,
Yeah.
And so this is clearly one of the LA ones, and it's called the OC. Therefore, the
Must
OC
be.
is LA.
Yeah.
And that's the transitive property. You know?
Interesting. Yeah. Sure. So you were shocked when you actually moved to LA
Yes.
and saw people of a different color.
I was shocked when I got to Orange County and I was like, where's the Hollywood sign?
Yeah,
like,
right. It's a couple hours away from where
Incorrect.
we are. Yeah. Interesting. So you went to OC for college.
Yes.
Was the dream always to do stand-up?
Yes. So the dream was always to like get into comedy in college. And wow, this is a religious podcast, and I don't know if cults are allowed to be brought up, but I did get into improv. I got into improv. Most dangerous cult of all.
Yeah, because you're happy the whole time.
Because you're happy the whole time and you don't realize who you're hurting. At least in a cult, when you sacrifice somebody, you know what you did. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The robes are covered in blood. In improv, I put on shows in the student union and I did permanent damage that I only recognize in hindsight.
Well, the one positive thing to the improv cult is the only person you're hurting is yourself.
Ultimately, that is true.
Yeah.
Ultimately, everyone I've begged for a one-word suggestion has managed to move on, and I play it over and over.
Yeah. I mean, improv is such a nice. I looked at it because I started in improv as well in Provo, Utah, as far as my comedy career goes. But it's such a nice, welcoming, supportive group to join if you're thinking about doing comedy at all.
It's very welcoming. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like stand-up comedians hate on improvisers or whatever. But I know early when I was like just starting stand-up and you're bombing and it's brutal, I was doing improv simultaneously, and the improv felt great because you would just do objectively the worst comedy you've ever seen or heard of and be met with just like acclaim and warmth. And it's like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, and the expectations from an audience is very different. Mm-hmm. For stand-up and improv. So you started in improv. Was that with the student group, a club?
That was with the student group.
Got it.
Yeah, at Chapman. And it was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And how long did you do that? Was that all 4 years at Chapman?
That was all 4 years, baby.
Man, you were in.
Yeah.
You were
I was deep in.
Yeah.
And then I did senior year and kind of my first year in LA, I did the UCB thing. And then I kind of switched over to stand-up.
And what was your experience in UCB? Was it positive? I've heard mixed things.
It was positive. I mean, that's the thing about it is like, because I obviously like making fun of improv now, but it's like, if anything, if I had a genuinely bad experience, I'd probably have a tougher time making fun of it because it would be just, I don't know, it would feel like too precious and I'd be unearthing like bad emotions. But I can't complain,
Yeah. So stand-up, you'd always been oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I think you froze for a second, but I think
we're back. Yeah. Good. Man, Zoom. Everyone's using it, and somehow I get hurt every once in a while.
It's since we were talking about improv, and they're like, this is not a priority.
This is going nowhere. Let's stop. So what did you like about, or what do you see as the biggest differences between stand-up and improv as a performer?
I mean, it's I feel like they're just very different parts of your brain. Like, I honestly feel like there's not a whole lot of overlap. I guess the one thing is just like, I don't know, just being able to identify like the funny thing about a situation. I suppose I honestly feel like most of the overlap is probably unconscious. But yeah.
Now, are you kind of guy that writes out your jokes word for word when you perform stand-up? Or do you feel like, okay, so improv, you're not one of the guys like, I'll just write on stage and kind of feel it out and No. Gotcha.
I think that if you're writing on stage at open mics, you're a sociopath. There's a word for that. There's just no way. Like, you're going on stage to find it at 3 p.m. at an open mic? No.
Yeah.
Amongst
friends, Robert. Amongst friends.
Oh, I was said. I don't think you understand. I have nothing but deep enemies in the LA open mic scene.
I don't think that. Well,
deep
maybe
rivalries and vicious enemies are out here.
Do you have a comedy nemesis?
Huh?
Do you have a comedy nemesis, an arch nemesis in the comedy world?
They all are.
All of them?
They're just, look at me. They're just rungs on a ladder. We can say this now. Stand-up is canceled. We're not going back to an open mic. Just rungs on a ladder. Yeah. I watch other comedians on stage. I'm like, they're just chess pieces moving across a board.
Wow. Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Man, you are heartless.
I'm a snake, Seth.
I had my doubts about the way you were portrayed in the YouTube docuseries, and gotta say,
oh my God, yeah.
I've been a little disappointed. No, you have many friends in the comedy scene. You don't need to burn all the bridges now. but I would appreciate a list of those you wish do not come back. And you can share that with me.
And I'll be publishing that. I've been tweeting it out every day. This person should have come back for this reason, including myself. Ultimately, I'm building to me.
Yeah. So has stand-up been everything you've hoped and dreamed it would be? Or what was your expectation starting stand-up?
I don't know. I mean, I thought it would go well. I mean, it's really tough. It's really tough to like tell, because I think that early on you have such an intense optimism. So the expectation is it'll all be amazing, and then you're immediately met with a wave of negativity, and then that switches to the other side, but you think everything's going to be bad forever. Yeah. I think I've hit a nice little midpoint where, a good mix of each. Yeah. So I can't really complain.
All right. Well, good. So how long have you been doing stand-up?
Let me see. So really started after college. That's 2017. I moved out here August. I'd say I really started focusing on it December of 2017. So what is that, 2.5 years?
Yeah.
About 2.5 years. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So you and I started about the same time. That's fascinating. Yeah. Interesting. Very fun. So do you want to talk about a best experience and a worst experience, or just a best experience?
In stand-up, or?
Yeah, in stand-up. No, in just your normal life. With your girlfriend, preferably. No, just stand-up.
Well, let me see. Worst experiences, just so many. I'll say this. This is, I think, one of the funnier examples of a bad experience.
Yeah.
That is only funny in hindsight. And it's actually not a bombing story, which is very interesting.
Okay.
But it was like, there was a Sunday nights you could do the improv open mic, and there was a period where the Comedy Store was doing an open mic also simultaneously. Yeah. So I went to the improv open mic first, got up, bombed. Yeah. Oh, God, awful bombing. Went immediately to the Comedy Store open mic. Okay. Go there. I'm late because I was at the improv mic. It's dark. I'm trying to sign up. I take a pen. I start writing, and I realize that it's not writing. It's not working. And then I look down. It's like kind of a weird pen. And then I look up at the door guy who had been hosting the mic, and he goes, "Did you just take the straw from my drink?" And I had, in the darkness, grabbed what I thought was a pin in like a pen jar, and it was just the straw out of a stranger's drink, tried to write, and then I was like, I'm sorry, got up, bombed, went back to the improv where I left my car, and my car window had been broken into.
Oh, no. Yeah. That's a triple strike right there.
By the time I got to the car window, I was like, but of course this would happen.
Right.
But this is naturally the end of this story.
Oh, that's so frustrating. Now, have you seen that door guy at the Comedy Store again?
Oh, yeah. It's one of those rare situations where the moment kind of just exists in and of itself. I don't think it created any clearly I had no malicious intent, and I think he was just more like shocked that was even a thing that could happen than upset anyway. I think that whole experience encapsulates a lot of what open mic comedy is.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
Right. Just awkward experience upon awkward experience. So as a seasoned professional now in the open mic scene, Robert, what advice, or let me ask you this first. Do you think we're going to see an influx of open micers once coronavirus is lifted? Because we've got a lot of unemployed. I'm guessing there are going to be a lot of people that are going to think, hey, a little soft reset to the life. Do you think we're going to see an influx of open micers?
Honestly, I don't know. I would actually probably think the opposite, right? Like, I would think that there'd be fewer people doing open mics at the end of this. Because I think, I think there'd just be fewer people, because I think that it's impossible for people to get into a rhythm. I feel like once this opens up again, people are going to want to get back to their quote-unquote regular lives. Yeah. So unless that regular life included stand-up before, it's not going to include it now. Does that make sense? Like, you're going to want to get back to your familiar routine. Yeah. And if that's not stand-up, then at least not at first, that's not what you're going to do. At least that's my thought.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're right. The less.
I mean, I'm gonna come out of this thing playing stadiums, so I'm not really interested in open mic.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, this open mic talk is quaint, but I'm talking about amphitheaters right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, had you done much research in the LA open mic scene before coming to LA, or why did you pick LA over New York?
I wish I could say it was like much of a conscious choice. I think it was always one or the other. Mm-hmm. I think I may have honestly just been the weather, the aesthetic. I got into Chapman. Sure. You know what? I think it probably was just like I didn't even apply to any schools in New York. So I think
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it was just like, I think that's kind of like the college put me in what I thought was the area.
Yeah, well, it got you close.
What I believe to be the area.
Closer than Missouri.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that was it. I think also there's like an association of like the entertainment industry, Hollywood. Like there's an entertainment industry around LA stand-up, which is I think different than New York. But again, I've never been to New York, so what do I know?
Right. Now, do you still want to get into acting? Have you done any acting work?
That's the thing, no. Absolutely not. I've done like literally nothing besides stand-up. But
yeah. I respect a purist.
I guess the answer would be yes, but in a very intangible way that anyone would want to. But I can't tell you that I'm making any sort of concrete effort.
Like in a Bill Burr way, right? Where you get so famous doing stand-up that Hollywood producers are calling you, being like, "Hey, we would love for you to take this role."
Yeah, and let's be clear, I'm getting those calls. They want me badly. But I mean,
of course. But you might not be ready. You're still a little fresh.
That's what I say. I'm like, look, let me just work out this bit. You know what I mean? I'm trying to work on my bits, Mr. Warner Brothers.
And I can't portray another 12-year-old.
Yeah, it's like, I get it. You want me to play the new 12-year-old superhero for a Marvel franchise.
The next Spider-Man, Robert Schultz.
I know this is like a weird tangent, but it is so funny that like every like blockbuster movie that's like the first in a series has to star like a literal child because they want to make 14 of these things.
Yeah.
Like they've got like a 10-year-old playing Spider-Man. They've got like Star Wars of like 14-year-olds. It's like, okay.
Well, that was the genius of Harry Potter, right? They found those 3
kids.
Yeah. Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and whoever the freak played Ron.
Rupert Grint.
Yeah. They've all gone on to do other things. So.
But you know what? It's also a great era, and it's something that we have to respect Rupert Grint for, because in the last Harry Potter movie, there's a shirtless scene, and he did the ultimate power move, which is not even try to get into shape. He's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm a 17-year-old.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's it.
It's like, okay. Like now everyone, like Tom Holland's playing Spider-Man. He's got a 6-pack and like a high schooler.
Yeah.
Like whatever. Rupert Grint's like, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I found that relatable. I had a 6-pack in high school. So.
Yeah.
Now this last question. Oh no, go ahead.
I let that moment linger in case you wanted to clip it. Just get 15 seconds of you saying you had a 6-pack in high school and share it.
I mean,
that's me being a pro for you.
Look at you. You truly are. You truly are. Oh my gosh. One last Hollywood-ish question, and then we'll move on to your religious history, because that's what I am most interested in.
Yeah.
How devastated were you when you found out that Hollywood stars in like high school movies were really 30?
That's so interesting. Yeah, you know what? I always thought, and my theory on this has always been, I actually have no problem with them casting 30-year-olds to play high schoolers. I just think it should be scaled across the board. So if you cast a 30-year-old actor to play a high school age student, then all of the parents on that show should be played by like 70-year-olds. That's what I've said.
Yeah.
If you're going to have 30-year-olds play high schoolers, when they get home, they're like, Mom, I'm back. Their mom should be just like coughing up dust in a walker. Happy 40th, Mom. She's like, her eyes have like memories of the Great Depression flashing through them. That's always what I believe. Just be consistent.
I love it. I love that principle. And in the spirit of talking about principles, you were raised Catholic. Is that correct?
Correct.
So do you still identify as Catholic?
Well, you know what? I feel as if I've put the work in to identify as Catholic. That's kind of the way I look at it. So am I still invested in the Catholic faith? Not really. But I think that the fact that I did go to church every week and I did like confirmation classes, I did the thing. And I went to Catholic school through 2nd grade.
Okay. So, all 3 years.
All 3 years. Those are formative. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I went to everyone for, But, so no, I think I would still say, if you said, what religion are you? I would probably say, well, I'm Catholic.
Yeah. So now, is there a cultural aspect to being Catholic that you still follow or identify with?
Well, I think the Catholic guilt, I know it's probably a touched upon thing, but I do think that that's still kind of, it affects your mindset more than anything. So I think as a Catholic, you're very much taught to be constantly aware and self-analyzing and be very paranoid of be paranoid of what other people are perceiving when it comes to you and your actions. So I think that hasn't gone away. Okay. So I think that's definitely true.
Got it. Now, were your parents very religious, and are they still?
My dad never really was. My dad was never really part of the religious thing. He was kind of like, well, that's kind of what your mom does. And my mom individually, I don't think is Catholic, but her parents were very Catholic. Okay. So she was raised in a very Catholic environment. And I think she raised us, I think, to go to church every week, to follow the Catholic principles, not because she necessarily believed in them, but because that was just what she thought you did with kids.
Sure. Or so that's what she knew, you know?
Yeah, that's what she knew. She's like, well, my parents took me to church, so I will take my kids to church, and that's just kind of what you did. Right. But it wasn't necessarily devout so much as just dedicated to the routine, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. So are you still going to church every week? No. Well, when did that stop for you?
Well, the Catholic church every week stopped, I think, in 8th grade for me. But at that point, my mom, and this is kind of where I say that my mom's kind of religious journey was different. She stopped identifying with the Catholic Church, really, and she started going to, I guess, the easiest context would be a quote-unquote mega church.
Oh, okay.
So we went from Catholic church, very devout, to a quote-unquote mega church where, like, the pastor wore jeans.
Yeah.
They'd be singing pop Christian songs.
Right.
And I'm not going to lie, I bought into that for a second.
Yeah, sure.
I was like, you know what the problem with Catholicism was? It was kind of all the outer stuff. Really, we just need to be singing cool songs in jeans. It was like CMT and the C is for Christ. And it was...
Right.
So I actually bought into that.
Yeah. Okay. And
so that was kind of my journey. And then I'd say around high school, I want to say probably sophomore year, then it kind of stopped altogether.
Gotcha. So what drew you, or what pushed you away from religion in general?
Well, I don't know. I think that it's more so what pushed me away from necessarily the dogma of religious practices. Well, I think that's it. I think that the problem was, like, my exposure to religion was very formulaic, and there wasn't really that emotional connection. So basically, as soon as I had the freedom to leave, I was like, I don't have to do this, then I won't. Yeah. But yeah, so I think that's it. Like I said, it was very much, we did these things consistently because they were the things to do, and it almost felt like a chore. There was never really that deeper belief. It was kind of like, well, this is just what everybody does.
Yeah.
I think once I got a larger context for, wait, not everybody has to do this, then I just went through it.
Yeah.
I think you also can't, I did move to a private school. Sorry to brag. Remember at the beginning when I was like, I actually don't have money.
I mean, I'm just going to let you talk, Robert. You dig yourself wherever you want to dig.
I'm digging myself a deep hole. I went to a private school, the Army Hammer School for Well-Coughed Boys, where we were taught to hunt the homeless. And that became my new religion. No. Wow. But I think that was probably it. It's like none of my friends were particularly religious.
Yeah.
So there was no context. Like I said, my mom kind of went on her own journey individually. She was trying to find, like, what made sense for her. Yeah. And I had kind of the allure of the mega church thing had kind of worn off, and then I kind of just left it behind. So I think that what's left over is kind of the mental, cultural things, but just the dogma was kind of left behind.
Yeah, gotcha. So did you study scriptures when you were growing up?
Yeah. We would go to the Catholic Church all the time, and then also my 8th grade before confirmation in Catholicism, I would do weekly classes where we would just study the scripture. And also I did reference, like, through 2nd grade, I went to a Catholic church, which doesn't seem like much, but you do kind of have that foundation of kind of Bible learning.
Yeah. I mean, was this taught by nuns?
My preschool was taught by nuns. After that, it wasn't taught by nuns. It was kind of more so like a public school feel and teaching. And I think that, honestly, there weren't any nuns there. I think it was like a few priests.
Oh, okay.
And then when I went to the confirmation classes, the curriculum was laid out by, I don't know, whatever Catholic overlords, but it was taught by basically just like moms in the community who wanted to give back.
Got it. Okay. So,
and that,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, that wasn't when I was in my full 8th grade. I was in my full kind of snarky phase. So it was a lot of me being like, but wait a minute, if North America hadn't been discovered, how did Noah get the buffalo on the ark? And just some overwhelmed mother is like,
yeah.
Oh, God.
It is a valid question. I mean, were you raised to take the Bible literally or more as figurative?
I think that those words weren't ever really used. So I guess the short answer would be like, yes, the priests took the Bible literally. So they would teach us, and they would teach us, like, take us literally in church.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd say this, like, my family, I think always, it was figurative. It's almost like these were stories that you were told and things you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So in studying scriptures and then in going to megachurch, my idea of megachurch is sort of, let's get more personal with God.
Yeah.
More emotional connection with God rather than arguably a philosophical connection, which I think more is this, study of the scripture. Did you ever? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just on that, I think that because a lot of my Catholic scripture teaching was when I was really young.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they were teaching it literally, but when you're that age, everything is figurative anyway. Does that make sense? Like, you're being taught history, you're being taught math. Like, these are all things that, when I'm in 6th grade, I'm not applying geometry to my everyday life. You know what I mean? It's like everything is figurative. So I think maybe when it got to the point in my life where I was able to kind of at least think about the literal world and my place in it, that was when I kind of slowly started to break away.
Gotcha. So did you ever feel a connection with God or no?
I would say yes, honestly. Okay. Well, I think that's one of those things where it's like around 8th grade in the megachurch era, I started praying. I would like pray on my own, or like when I would, before I had something. I mean, what is that old saying? It's like there's always going to be prayer in school as long as there are tests or something. But it's like I would pray before a test. I would pray before things. So basically, I would pray very selfishly.
Sure.
And I think that's another thing is like that kind of became, I would pray in my private moments for my personal schoolwork, friends, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And that relationship became individual, and it never really happened through church. So I think that also became a way for me to kind of let it go.
Gotcha.
But I think especially during the megachurch era, yes, I think so. Like that was where like the emotional connection came, because it basically just dumbed down everything I had already been taught, and was already a foundation in my head.
Yeah, right. So do you still believe in a God?
I would say probably. I mean, then that's one of those things where it's like, I'd say yeah. If you ask me, yes. If you ask me what form that takes, I probably wouldn't know. So I guess that my what was it? I think that Freud had the thing of like, Freud's thing was like, even if God is real, there's not enough evidence to justify believing in him. I think the example I always learned was like, hey, is there a clown? It's like if me telling you there's a clown behind you right now, even if you turned around and saw there was a clown behind you, you would still have been right to doubt that there was a clown behind you in the first place, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
Basically, it's like, even if God is real, is there enough evidence to justify believing in him? But I think I ultimately fall down the thing of, I believe in a lot of things that I couldn't justify or prove in any given moment. So sure. I'd say that agnostic. I think that's probably a long way around to say agnostic.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair though. I mean, do you find it, in moments of stress or anxiety or, even depression, do you find yourself going back to prayer or this sort of mental state you were in when you were going to the mega church?
Well, yeah. Well, I think that's it. It's like I said, it's almost like I had the foundation of the dogma from Catholicism, and I think the megachurch just showed me like, oh, there is another way to connect with this. Yeah. And then even that connection is like, all right, well, I'll make my own connection with whatever I think to be out there. So I kind of left all of that aside. So yeah, I mean, like I'll occasionally pray, or like I'll pray for like, oh, I hope so-and-so does well.
Or apparently badly.
Or yeah. I hope they're a bit about cum bombs. That's what I think. When one of my enemies starts doing a new bit about cum, I'm like, I hope this cum bit bombs, and I hope God makes it happen.
And I'm sure he does, because it's so inappropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I think that again, it's like I think that my connection or feeling about it has like taken its own individual form. So yeah, I think I definitely still do, but I don't miss the dogma, and I don't necessarily connect. When I think about it or when I say a prayer, I'm not necessarily picturing anything at the mega church or anything at the Catholic church or schools that I grew up in.
Got it. Yeah. So for you, I mean, I understand you don't really identify necessarily as religious. You say agnostic, but do you still believe in something spiritual, a higher power out there, or are you truly apathetic?
I would say that I'd say ultimately apathetic would probably apathetic to other people's beliefs. So I'm kind of like,
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Like it's one of those things where it's like when I see a crazy Christian like mega church dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, if I see someone like those like pastors on TV who are like begging for money and flying private jets like Joel Osteen, I'm like, well, that guy's crazy. Right. And then I'm not gonna lie, when I see Bill Maher just being like, if you believe in God, you mentally ill idiot moron. I'm like, well, I don't know if that's the way to go either. So I think I probably fall somewhere in the middle, but
okay. Yeah, that's fair. So I mean, comedically, I'm curious. I've seen not everything you've ever done as far as your comedic repertoire of jokes goes, but I haven't seen you ever joke about God. Do you joke about God? Do you joke about religion?
Yeah, I joke about growing up religious, but I mean, I think it's yeah, I have some. So I've got a Catholic chunk in there. I've got a good minute and a half. But it's not necessarily about God. Yeah, it's not necessarily about God. It's just, for me, it's like more so just like the comedy of like growing up in a Catholic environment and what that means. It's like my joke, like I grew up Catholic. You may know us as like the good guys from every exorcism movie or as the bad guys from world events. And it's like,
yeah,
there's like little jokes. Yeah, I think it's like, again, it's like not necessarily about spirituality or anything associated with it. It's just kind of like juxtaposing growing up Catholic versus growing up like my friends who were different religions and kind of like the way those would kind of bump into each other.
Right. Gotcha. So do you believe in an afterlife or do you even care?
You know, I guess if you put a gun on, I would believe in some, like I think that's it. It's like I would probably assume there's some form of afterlife and I'd probably choose to believe that. But I don't really know what form that takes. And if someone's like, I don't believe in it at all, I'm like, well, I can't really argue with you. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I think I'd say yes.
Yeah. So from your Catholic upbringing, the afterlife, as far as Catholicism is concerned, I understand is sort of vague. Like there's a heaven and then there's a hell. But what I gather is hell's pretty big. Is that inaccurate?
Well, I would say that's inaccurate because I would say actually growing up Catholic, the concept of heaven and hell was very, very specific. So,
okay.
Yeah. So the Catholic version of heaven is literally, I was taught you're on clouds playing harps with the angels.
Oh, so that really is okay.
All right. That's kind of well, that's it. But keep in mind that my Catholic teaching was when I was like very young, so that's probably
okay.
Who knows? Maybe if I had stayed in Catholic school until high school, they would have been like, all right, here's what's really going on. You're getting sucked off by everything. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I just got the G-rated version of Catholicism.
Right. Something that kids could relate to. Being naked,
Harry Potter started off as a kid's movie, and by the end of it, Voldemort's just killing people with snakes. Maybe Catholicism is its harps and clouds early on, but then at the end, you're getting sucked off.
I mean, I will say this, though. Harry Potter had books that were pretty clear about the events that were going on. Yeah. The Bible is not very clear about what heaven includes.
Well, I guess that's true. I think that it's heavy on like very poetic descriptions, but I guess you're right. I think a lot of those descriptions aren't when you get into the practical day-to-day application.
Yeah.
But then again, I always took that to mean it's like, well, once you're in the afterlife, all concepts of time and day-to-day kind of evaporate anyway. Sure. You know what I mean? So it's like, how can you put kind of real-world constraints on kind of a post-world or whatever?
Yeah, gotcha. No, that makes sense. All right. Well, fun. Well, I think that's we're almost on an hour. We're at about 45 minutes, which is pretty good, really.
Oh, not bad.
And I wanted to give you some time to ask me some questions about what's the deal with Mormons. So is there anything regarding Mormonism that you've come across or encountered that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah. So, all right.
Okay.
Mormons is the Mitt Romney one, right?
Yes. Mitt Romney is a member of the Latter-day Saint faith. Yeah. Otherwise known as Mormons. Yes.
Also the Killers, right?
The Killers. Yeah. I believe all of them. Yeah.
Naming celebrities and being like, huh?
Yeah. The Osmonds, if you remember Donnie and Marie.
Yeah.
Also Latter-day Saint faith members.
That's pretty cool. Are you still Mormon?
I am.
You are. So you're still, and do you take it literally or?
Well, what do you mean by, I mean, I take the faith seriously, if that's what you're asking. I don't take the Bible literally. No.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I think there are perhaps some stories that were literal. I'm willing and believe that the, story regarding Moses delivering the children of Egypt on the Red Sea, out of Egypt on dry ground through the Red Sea. I believe that's literal. I believe that actually happened. The flood, I don't know that the entire globe was covered in water. I'm not sure about that. I don't know that that's really the point of the story, or that it's necessary to believe that literally. But did a huge flood happen? Yeah, I believe that happened where Noah was living. Sure.
I've always thought that it's like, I think that you're never meant to take it literally, which is why when I always draw such a parallel to white guys telling jokes about rap songs versus a lot of times people complaining about the Bible as like not being literal. You know what I'm talking about? Like a lot of times white guys will be like, I don't know. It's like they'll take like a rap song, rap lyrics clearly meant to be like exaggerated and be like, but could this literally happen? It's like somebody's like they'll listen to Ludacris being like, all I do is win. And it's like, really? You've never even tied? And it's like, well, you're not, that's not the point. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's kind of in my head, whenever people come at the Bible literally, I'm like, well, that's just not even what it's supposed to be.
Sure. Yeah. But yes, I mean, we still, we still go to church. Now we're not physically going to church anymore because of the coronavirus, the quarantine. But
which we've done an admirably little amount of content on. I know. This. We haven't touched on it at all.
I mean, we can. Do you want to talk about coronavirus? I feel like we could.
We could hit all the benchmarks. We could. Yeah. It's right there.
Yeah, I mean, you're surviving quarantine, right?
Huh?
You're surviving quarantine.
Quarantine is crazy. It should be called crazy teen.
Oh, hey-o. Got him.
Yeah.
Have you tested? Have you been tested for coronavirus?
No. And Seth, I'm going to be honest. I don't think we should go into it. I think we should leave people vague.
Good.
I don't think we should. I think we should have the discipline to say no. This isn't about Corona. This is about Christ. And shame on you for wanting the Corona. I just figured you'd be sick of talking to people about it because you have everyone contacting you for their podcasts and their shows. Yeah. I'm getting bombarded.
I mean, just ridiculous.
It is one of those things where it's like, do I necessarily want to do Zoom comedy shows? No. Would I like to be offered more? Absolutely.
Now, give
me the option to say no.
Have you been doing the Zoom comedy shows?
Yeah. I've done a few, and they've been fun. And I should say they've been fun, and they've been fun.
Yeah.
They've been fun. They've been fine. I appreciate the opportunity. I'd welcome it again.
There you go.
Connect with friends. Connect with fans.
Yeah, every booker that does Zoom comedy shows watches this, so it would behoove you to speak well of the Zoom comedy shows.
That's my new religion. Yeah. I pray to Zoom comedy shows.
I cannot condone that, but I understand it.
You know what? One thing I did want to ask is I know that you probably, the Book of Mormon, you've been bombarded with it, but I remember when they were promoting it, Matt Parker and Trey Stone made a big show of Mormons have seen it and they love it. They love it. And I'm like, all right, I get they're saying that to sell it, but I'm like, there's just no way that's true.
Yeah. I will say there are Mormons I know who have seen it and who have liked it to varying degrees. But I don't think anyone that I know has come out of it thinking, oh, they just hate members of our faith.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which I think is, I mean, I don't think they do. I've seen limited South Park episodes where they discuss Mormons, and it's always in the same sort of, they are harmless, quaint people that are just trying to be happy and do good.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the musical. I have wanted to see it, but I haven't seen it. It was in the Amundsen in Pasadena right before quarantine hit, and I think it overlapped with quarantine, so we weren't able to go. But the music that I've listened to is still the same vein. It's still, they're good-hearted people that might be a little bit delusional, but their delusion is not harmful. So
I think that's it. Yeah, that seems about right. I know it's now jumping off from that. The last thing I did before quarantine, one of the last things I did, it was the weekend before it started. I saw Margaritaville at the Dolby Theater.
Oh wow, how was it?
Jimmy Buffett musical. Well, here's the biggest takeaway: it was packed.
Yeah,
it was packed, and it was packed with like old people, like packed. And at one point, there's a bit in the song where there's apparently a Jimmy Buffett song called "Let's Get Drunk and Screw." I never knew it, but they made a big show on stage where they're like, "Well, we don't want to say the second word because it's a bad word, so maybe the audience can help us out." And they said that. I'm like, "There's no way anyone in here is going to help you out." And then they said, "Let's get drunken," and thousands of people with families, with children, screamed screw, and they've never been happier. And I just want to get that back. If there's one thing we are going to say about everything, about religion, about quarantine, we just want Margaritaville back.
Sure. Yeah. At least the aspect of community that Margaritaville brought. Yeah. So if there is one thing you could change about organized religion, what would it be?
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, obviously, like there's the obvious answers, like with like the Catholic Church, quick Google search, quick watch of any Academy Award nominee.
Right.
That's it. I've always realized like the movie, the better the Catholic Church is portrayed. Like if you watch like a horror movie with like an 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, they're like, we got to get this girl to a priest. The devil's in her. And if you watch a movie with like a 98%, it's just priest being like thrown in jail cells. And it's like, and we never want you out.
Yeah.
So what was the question? If I could change, like obviously you have the harmful things. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that just anyone could, not even touching on the obvious things of like people being hurt and like et cetera, et cetera. I'd say just in general, I think that putting less pressure on anyone's experience and kind of giving them the breathing room to find their own way through.
Yeah. I think that's very fair. Excellent. Did you have any other questions about Mormonism or no? Did we cover your gamut?
My main thing was the Mitt Romney one and the Killers question mark, and we got that. And if I'm being honest, the Book of Mormon thing I pulled out of my back pocket. I really just want to confirm the Killers. So
yes, I believe that is all true. The lead singer, I think, of the Killers is a member of the faith. I'm not sure if every member of the band is, though they very well might be.
I feel like he writes the songs and he sings them. So if you're not, they may as well convert. Otherwise, that's just like that's weird. Guilty
by association, perhaps. Yeah. Right? Very fun. All right. Anything you want to? Any Zoom shows you got coming up? You want to plug?
Oh, no. I don't know. I would love some. I have to decline them, but please offer them to me. I'm begging you.
Exactly.
But, follow me on Twitter. Follow me on, dare I say, TikTok. I'm so sorry.
Are you on TikTok, Robert?
On TikTok.
No kidding. Yeah. Wow. So
I'm sorry.
Okay, this is the final question. And I'll put your handle for Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Send me your TikTok.
It's all _ Robert Schultz.
Beautiful. Okay, I'll put them all in the show notes so people can find you. What's been your favorite TikTok craze to hop on?
If I'm being like very honest, I don't watch other people's TikToks, and I think that's probably a shame.
Wow. Yeah. How do you participate in the community? You're just putting out original content? Are you kidding me?
I just put it out there. It bombs. I wonder why, and then rinse and repeat.
That's great. Are you trying to get your sounds used by other TikTokers?
No. I mean, well, it's you know what?
What's your goal with TikTok, Robert?
There is no goal. What's the goal with anything?
To get famous.
My goal with TikTok is to just keep the gun barrel out of my mouth for another day. Just keep the taste of lead out of my throat.
Yeah, a good outlet. I can understand that.
Why do you think I did this podcast? To just keep There's a revolver right off the webcam's view.
I totally understand. Yeah, that's the whole reason I'm keeping this podcast going, you know.
To just keep me from reaching. That's all I ask.
Exactly. Oh my
God. And if I do die, pay me this tribute. Follow me on TikTok. If I die, follow me on TikTok.
We will. And send us a message from the other side. Are we playing harps? What is happening?
I'll give you confirmation. I'll zoom in from the other side.
That would be great. That would be great. Right. Robert, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
For talking to me. And have a great week.
You as well. Hopefully see you soon.
Yep, absolutely. Bye.